And then what happens is you get this ghastly echo because it's basically a couple of seconds behind us.
Okay.
So just to warn you, we will get some feedback, everybody. You're going to get a sec. And then what happens is you get this ghastly echo because it's basically a couple of seconds behind us. Did you see what I mean? That was basically it. All
right.
And now we are back with the full screen. And we're going to start recording. And the other thing that I'm about to try and do is, share the screen. Now, Rachel, you're going to have to be my eyes and ears. Can you now see the screen with you and I on it? And also,
I can only, now I can see myself, but I can't see you.
That may be because I put this sort of slightly strange speaker view on. So I think it's actually only as the person's talking. Can you at least see the screen?
I can see the screen, yes.
That's the main thing. This is so tell us a little bit about this lovely chocolate cake that you've made here.
That's like my vegan version of a Sourdough. That was like the idea behind it. Just because I wanted to make chocolate more accessible. Because I know a lot of, nowadays you really have to cater for all different tastes and for people from all different dietary requirements. So I really just wanted to make like some of the flavors as a child with a Austrian grandmother, a Sourdough came, it was like something you ate quite often. So I wanted to make it accessible to everyone. So it has a mirror glaze, which is that shiny chocolate glaze on there, which is vegan friendly. It's plant-based, so it's not using gelatin, which is usually what you use in a mirror glaze. So yes, and you can see that recipe in my new chocolate series on the Food Network, or you can stream it all on Discovery Plus UK. And actually, it's all free to stream at the moment.
It's on Discovery Plus too?
Yes, it's on Discovery Plus UK, which is their version of Netflix, basically. And they have made the series free to stream, apart from episode 11 and 12, which is going out on Monday at 7 p.m. on the Food Network. And so you have to watch that on the Food Network. But then I think once those have aired, then the whole series will be available to watch. Or if you don't want to watch me on TV, you can buy the e-cookbook, the chocolate e-cookbook, which has the recipe in there. And that's available on my website. And all the proceeds from that e-cookbook is going to Women's Aid UK, which is an amazing charity helping women and children in domestic abuse situations.
Which we also supported tonight.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so you guys already who have joining us tonight are supporting the charity. But if you wanted to get even more chocolate, really into the chocolate spirit, then go get a copy of the e-cookbook. It's only £7.50, which is, I don't know, 2 coffees if you're lucky.
I think it's a good thing too. I have to say my mum is extremely excited about this, so I will get her the book because she will be very, very keen about it.
Now, I have a tech question. I've been really silly. Am I not I want to go on menti.com as well, but what am I not doing?
No, you need your phone to do that.
You need your phone. My goodness.
You do. And so I obviously was not clear enough in my instructions. The one thing which is interesting is that the one bit which we are now doing, which actually goes down extremely well, is that everybody does read the bit in the email which says, if you want to wish anybody a happy birthday or say thanks to anybody, you can. And the number for menti.com, which we will get to in a minute, and there are prizes.
I've got my page ready on my phone.
Ready. That's the thing. That's the thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah, no, menti.com, definitely. I mean, because the fun thing is, as everyone's going to discover, we're going to say this again as we go, is the aim of tonight is to sort of do a desert island discs with you, which I have to say, I've done a slight precursor to, and I found absolutely fascinating. But as people are doing that, they're going to be invited to basically try different chocolates, which sort of fit into your career and your philosophy and your life as you go through all these different places. So actually I can give everybody the number and then you'll all appear on it like this. The number is 58.
Hang on. All right. 58.
66.
66.
14.
14.
02.
02. Okay. Let's see. Yes. Conversations in Craft Chocolate.
It does work quite well. It's quite surprising how well it goes. So yeah, no, it should be all pretty good.
Cool.
And I think it's almost 7:30 or 8:30 your time. So yes. I think we can move on from slide 1 and explain to people how this works. Although some people I think have been on this before. So the ideal thing is that if you've got the bit of paper that you've all sort of, hopefully got with the box set, and we will reshare, Hannah, the details in just a minute. It will actually be on all the pages where you need it. And then also the other bits of paper, and then all your chocolates laid out. What we're going to try and do, as I sort of said, is that Rachel has had and is one of the most extraordinary sort of careers and variety of experiences and impressions. Everything from sort of Singapore, Malaysia, through to Austria, through to Paris, where we're going to hear all about her amazing cooking, which is just extraordinary there. And we're going to taste a chocolate bar for each one of those. And you're all invited to try and sort of share it, while Rachel is basically going to sort of explain a little bit about what she gets up to in all these different places. And you're going to find things about Rachel that, about the milk a cow, for example, which I think is just going to be awesome. And it is going to be all recorded. So, and there is, of course, a quiz at the end where you will be quizzed about stuff that we talk about today, but also Rachel's...
Yeah, I'll be grading everybody at the end of this. I'll be bringing out my judging hat.
Yes, you'll be on good form. Right. So I think the first thing that we're going to do is, because it's quite an art, which we actually do on the TV series. I think it was on last week when you and I actually discussed how to taste chocolate. So I think we're going to do a quick recurse of that. But before we do that, let's just get a feel for what sort of audience we've got. And as I sort of said, the number you need on menti.com, and I'm just typing this in now, is 58 66 1402. And it's all anonymous. So actually, when it comes to the quiz, Rachel's already beaten me to it.
I make a great PA. I actually used to be a personal assistant before I did this TV malarkey.
And actually, we're gonna spoil one of the first bars, because actually, one of the ways we got to know one another was through somebody who worked with you, not really as a PA, but then went on to found an amazing new chocolate company, who I think actually is just, I don't know if you know this, well, we'll talk about it in a minute. But anyway, so look, the good news is this is a better than average audience in UK terms. So in Britain, 25% of Brits eat chocolate every day, 75% of us every 3 to 4 days. So you guys are well ahead of it. So this is fantastic. These
are my kind of people. I like it. I can see right now, earlier today, 25 people. That's good. And within the last week, I'm glad people are enjoying their chocolate.
It is very, very important. Now what we're going to do is find out how many of your TV programs have you seen.
Oh no!
I really hope that everybody basically.
Let me just have a look. I don't think
you actually have to pick one of these. I've made a slight mistake. I've made a mistake, which is you can only book one. So maybe you have to turn this into which is your favourite, because everyone's trying to vote on all of them. I'm sorry, I've made a complete goof. So this is not working at all. I'm so sorry. But look, the main thing is that everybody's seen all of your TV programs. I'll put in a question later about which is the favourite, but they are all amazing. Okay, right now, this is very, very important, which Rachel knows all about. What do we spend most money on in the UK? And you'll see why this is so important in a minute. It's chocolate. You've all got this one right. It's amazing. We spend more on chocolate than we do on books and music combined. But now this is why it becomes so important. You're about to discover why. And this is where Britain actually beats Sweden. So who spends the most on chocolate per capita? Okay. So it's good to be patriotic, but I'm actually afraid to say it is the Swiss. And there's something else which goes along with eating chocolate as a nation. And it's this, that basically, the more chocolate you eat, the more your probability of winning a Nobel Prize as a country goes up.
Okay, really?
Our aim tonight is to try and get more and more people to be eating more and more chocolate, because it means we're going to get more and more Nobel Prizes. But anyway, so the first thing we're going to do, though, inside that is to get people to figure out a bit about how they can taste chocolate. So you and I both got a bit of chocolate. So we'd like you to probably take the bare bones. So the first one we want you to do, and we'll come back on to talk about Lara, who sort of PA'd a bit for you, and Cameron. But we're going to first of all basically take their Dominican chocolate from Oco Caribe and take a bit of their chocolate out. But before I want you to eat it, there's a slightly sort of strange ritual, which everybody knows the rituals about wine, don't they? But there's a great ritual to having chocolate, which is take a piece of chocolate out, admire it, and make sure it's shiny, which it definitely will be in the case of Lara and Cameron's. And then, before you do anything else, it's hold it up to your ear and snap it. And you should get exactly what Rachel just managed to get, a lovely snap. And then I want you to do something very strange, which is not what's been written down on the instructions. You and I know how to do this, and at the risk of getting shot by your agent, I'm going to still try and get you to do it. I'd love you please to hold your nose, because we're going to explain how chocolate is just...
All right.
Okay. Here we go. Everybody hold your nose. Put a piece of chocolate on your tongue.
Yes.
Rachel and I will not asphyxiate. We will talk like clangers.
Okay.
For the next 5 or 10 seconds, Rachel's going to laugh and show you that you can laugh and basically keep your nose shut.
It's always, you could laugh no matter what you're doing. That's what I believe in.
Even when you've got your nose shut.
Exactly.
Has it now melted for you, Rachel?
Yes, it has.
Okay. So now what I want everybody to do is to release their nose. And suddenly we can understand, this is the only thing we really want you to get out of this, which is that bare bones is the chocolate we want you all to have a go at, which is the blue one from Lara and Cameron. And the key thing that just having a bit of chocolate while you hold your nose shows is the huge difference between taste, which is something we get from receptors in our mouth and in our tongue, all the way down to our gut, which detects things like sweetness, sourness, saltiness, bitterness, umami. By the way, this is very important because there's a question on it later, but it is utterly different to what you just got, which is flavor. And flavor, as we talk about in the TV program, is something extraordinary for humans because we are the only animals who can detect flavor with 2 of our orifices. So all animals can detect flavor by sniffing it. So if you have a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, or even a piece of chocolate, you can sniff it and you get some flavor. But the other thing which is amazing about human beings is that when you drop a piece of chocolate in your mouth, the volatiles get released, the flavor molecules get released, and that's what gives you the sense of flavor, because we have something called retronasal olfaction. And one other thing I want you to all think about as we taste the chocolates, and then we're going to taste this chocolate and hear a bit about your adventures with the Great Lara, is the wave that we developed, actually with a couple more of your TV co-stars, with Barry Smith, Professor Barry Smith, and Rebecca Palmer. And Rebecca Palmer actually is the person who sort of pointed out that, basically, with James Hoffman too, that you go on this sort of journey when you have chocolate and food like yours, which is before you sort of, even get there, it's a bit like going in the sea. Before the wave hits you, you get a bit of the texture. And then as the chocolate melts, you get the first upfront set of flavors developing and sort of just, like washing all over you. And then as the wave develops, you sort of get the balance, the length, and the intensity and the complexity. What in wine terms they call blick, but in chocolate, it definitely happens too. And a whole range of new sensations and flavors will emerge, like sometimes astringency, but other flavors will also emerge, bizarrely because the enzymes in your mouth, the saliva in your mouth, actually breaks down some what are called bonded molecules inside the chocolate. And releases those. So you're going to get different flavors as you go along, as you taste the chocolate. So what we'd also will love you to do is you've all got some crib sheets here, because everybody can describe the lovely blue polka dot dress that Rachel's got on my black shirt. But color we all get, music we all get, flavor, it's much more difficult. By the way, I am going to stop talking a minute and Rachel's going to Rachel,
don't worry, it's quite refreshing. I can enjoy the chocolate. It's still in my mouth.
While you and I are enjoying the chocolate, what we want everyone else now to do is to basically, first of all, describe the texture on menti.com of this lovely bare bones chocolate. What do you get? And then go through the flavor notes, because actually by sharing flavors with one another, and this is what we're going to do as we go through the whole presentation, you'll actually help one another identify what it is that you're tasting. Because unlike, for example, colors, which we can all readily say, so all the different books that we've got at the back of Rachel's picture there, we can all identify the colors of them. Flavors, very interesting. Even with Rachel's amazing cooking, even a great perfume nose or a wine sommelier can actually only detect 2 or 3 sensations at a time. Now, as they change over time, the beauty is actually getting people to describe what they're tasting helps other people see it too. But anyway, Rachel, tell us about Lara.
I am loving this. I'm like fascinated with everybody joining in. I'm really liking what everybody's picking up here. And it's like animated. Sorry, I got totally distracted. So the lovely Lara from Bare Bones Chocolate. Quite funnily, the way I know Lara is because she used to work for me. She really wanted to work for me, but she kept on emailing me, like this is many, many years ago, saying, I want to, do you have any work experience? I want to come work for you. And I don't really have anything. And then she actually her father contacted David Loftus, who's the photographer on all my cookbooks. He also does the photography for Jamie Oliver, for instance, a really amazing, talented photographer. He rang David Loftus saying, my daughter really wants to work for Rachel Khoo. Can you not put in a good word? So Lara ended up working for me. And then well, she left in 2016. Yeah, like she left then she was doing coffee, and she had a little pizza truck, and then she got into chocolate. And it's amazing. She is so dedicated, like really, really the amount of dedication. I mean, when she worked for me, she was very meticulous. So she's kind of applied that same kind of, you know, like really all the details, like even not just the chocolate bar, but also like the packaging, like thinking about the environment. So really everything is super well thought out.
And the name, just the bare bones. See, they've got this beautiful denim bag, which I have somewhere put aside to show you today, and I've completely goofed. Again, I haven't got it here. But they've got this amazing bag, which I strongly suggest you all get. And it will be a collector's item because they have just won the Academy of Chocolate's Young Rising Stars Award. Literally, it was
that does not surprise me. That does not surprise me. So no, I'm like,
well deserved.
I am so happy that we managed to get a bar of chocolate for this tasting. I'm like,
and it was very opposite. But this is the one that we should learn about how to taste because, you know, that's what they are just doing brilliantly on. Right. Shall we start with the beginning or not really?
Yes. Well,
what we're going to do is we're going to start with Singapore. So you should all have a bar, which is basically made by Yelena and team out in Singapore, which is a Fossa salted egg cereal bar.
Oh my goodness. So this bar, I remember when I think it was, when we were filming, you made it, like you suggested I taste it. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, wow, this is like, it blew my mind. Just because I've never.
Extraordinary chocolate. It's a very, very clever chocolate. But should we step back and let everybody savor it? And just like, I mean, because obviously you're not originally Singaporean, your dad's Malaysian, but you spent a lot of time in Singapore. And to me, it's just, you know, it's fascinating because I always associate you with just the nuances of flavor. And I wonder how much it comes from. Well, no, because you're very, very, it's very interesting because for you, I mean, whenever I've had any of your meals or I've seen any of when I've sort of, you know, used the recipes or talk to you about it, it's the variety that you get out of it, and it's all the different nuances which I always associate with Asia and this chocolate bar.
So my dad is from Malaysia, but I have a lot of relatives in Singapore, and I've spent a lot of time in Singapore. And even though you know, I don't have any Singapore kind of blood within me, it's Malaysian, I feel very at home there, especially with the kind of eating outside the hawker, like the night markets, the food markets, the way it's very accessible, in terms of eating out, and it's very laid back. There's no kind of grandeur about it, even though you can get Michelin-starred restaurants in Singapore, of course, but the best food is literally at those food markets, and it's really wide-ranging. Everything, you know, from like Indonesian, like Chinese or Cantonese, Malaysian, you know, so it's really, really eclectic kind of food, and that is what I really love about Singapore. It's, you know, you go to a food market and you kind of can pick out from the different stands, the different types of foods and stuff like that. So with this chocolate bar, with the Fossa, I thought what was interesting was the salted duck egg yolk. And it, you know, in one way, you're going to kill me when I say this, it reminds me a little bit about as a kid when I used to eat Karamak bars.
No. I think you are absolutely spot on. I think this is what you remember Karamak bars to be. If you have a Karamak bar now, I don't think you'd be quite.
I haven't had a Karamak bar in a very long time, but like the childhood memory of that kind of caramel, the milky tones. Oh, look, Hannah thought the same things too. Look, great minds think alike.
Yeah, no, we've got the caramel coming through. This is the lovely thing about people doing it. It's interesting that now people are starting to also get the chili from the heat at the end, because this bar is inspired by you'll be able to explain this better than me, but tar chui, you know, the sort of the breakfast noodle dish that they all have.
So I mean, chili is like, it's like seasoning over there. The way, you know, whenever you go to the restaurants or like the market stands, they will always have their kind of homemade kind of chili, whether it's pickled chilies or like a chili jam or a chili sauce or fermented chili sauce or hot sauce or whatever. There will be always some kind of chili involved. So what I like about the chili here at the end is it adds that little kick, but it's not overpowering, because I've had dark chocolate and chili a lot, but I've never had chili with like this kind of chocolate. So that's what I found was quite interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the other notes which people are picking up, and there have been a couple of questions in the chat about it too, is everybody is now well trained to look at the ingredients list and check where the beans come from. And by the way, just before I go any further, just in your honor, Rachel, I don't know if you can see this when I put it up really close, but the good news is that Fossa are now, in your honor, not this bar, but a future bar, they've actually got one from Malaysia. So
really,
when we do one of these, we're actually, and I will send it to you. We're literally getting it in a couple of weeks' time. But anyway,
oh my goodness, how exciting!
Vanilla is one of the other fascinating additions to this chocolate bar. So in the West, we tend to think of vanilla as being something which is sweet. And you have, I mean, if we put it in chocolate, it's normally a milk chocolate. Well, in milk chocolates, it's successful. In dark chocolates, it's a bit dubious because it normally hides the faults. But in milk chocolates, you put it in because it sort of enhances the sweetness, even though when you put vanilla on your tongue, it doesn't taste of anything. Now, in Asia, of course, it's used a lot in curries and other dishes. But there is a problem with vanilla, which is that it's now associated with all sorts of bad childhood practice, basically bad working practices, especially with children, lots of drug smuggling and everything. So some chocolate makers are now using vanillin, which was actually one of the first sort of, for want of a better word, genetically modified flavor additives, which people worked out how to do in the 1970s. And there's a fantastic book actually called Sugar, Salt and Fat, which describes it all. And if anybody wants to know, so I think Mark Straw and Hannah in the chat are both sort of asking about vanillin. If you want more about it, write to me later and I'll send you more books on it. But I love these descriptions that people go on. But go on, why do we think that Singapore is just so amazing for food? Go on.
Because it is so diverse. I think it's that kind of eclectic mix of like different cultures. And I think you find that also in the UK, you have such an eclectic mix of different cultures, to people from different backgrounds. But what makes Singapore different is that the food is more accessible. You can get a dish for like, under $5. Whereas like if you go out in the UK, like, a proper main course, if you're eating, you're not going to get much for a couple of quid, basically.
No.
You get a sandwich. So I think that's what I love about, Southeast Asia, is that the kind of going out, eating out experience is very accessible. And also there's a real craft in it. Like you go to these stands and people, like they've been making this like char kway teow, which is like a fried noodle dish for like generations. Their dad made it and now the son's making it, and it goes on like that. But there's also a new generation of like market stall vendors coming through who are putting their own spin on things. So it's really vibrant. And I think it's that vibrant, that energy I really love about Singapore.
Yeah,
also, it's small. It's really easy to navigate. So like getting around Singapore, super clean. The public transport is really easy. Most of the places have aircon, so you don't feel that humidity. Like it's like 100% humidity. I love that. I love some heat right now. I'm looking out my Stockholm window and it's so cold. It's almost minus. Actually, it's going to be minus tomorrow. This is May. I'm like, anyway, enough about the weather. So I think Singapore, I'm missing the food. I really want some. And actually in London at Borough Market, there's a very good Singaporean stall, or they do a restaurant called May May. And if you're in London and you want to go to Borough Market, I would definitely recommend going to there.
Can we use your name?
Yeah, so May May London.
We got it. Okay. That is superb. Right, we're now going to go to the other side of the family.
Yes.
And we're going to try this bar from the wonderful Joseph Zotta and his daughter, Julia. This is their butter caramel, which actually predates the whole craze for salted caramel too, but trial that one. But now just, give us the Austrian Collection. And I should warn you that the cows are going to come in a minute. All these pictures are on your Instagram feed. I hope you don't mind I sort of nick them all off.
No. Go for it. That's why they're there.
This is you looking very, very pensive, I think, in a Vienna.
No, that was in Vienna, and Vienna is such a beautiful city. I mean, for me, it reminds me a little bit like a smaller Paris. Like it's very culture. The architecture is very grand, very clean. I hope there's nobody Viennese watching this. But the Viennese are known for being quite rude. It's really a beautiful city. But my mum is actually from the other side of Austria on the Swiss border. And she is she's from this region called Vorarlberg, and Vorarlberg has a Milka chocolate factory where my parents actually live in that town. And if the wind blows one way, you smell chocolate. If it blows the other way, you smell the local brewery. So either way, you're winning, you know. And as a kid, I used to go to this chocolate factory, and when I was a kid, this is showing my age, it wasn't owned by, I don't know which big corporation. It was Austrian owned, and we would go to the factory as a kid. We could pick out, like, you get boxes of like the broken bits, and it was heaven. So I have a lot of fond memories of Milka chocolate. Also, my Austrian grandma, used to have a chocolate cupboard in her lounge, which she locked, but she would always have a bar of Milka chocolate in there. I wouldn't be able to eat Milka chocolate now. You can call me a chocolate snob, but it's just like, it's overpowering. Well, partly because of the ethics behind it, but like it's too much sugar for my liking now. So yeah. But I really love the Zotta, and they're like, he's a bit crazy actually. I was watching some interviews. It's a bit, you know, but I love that kind of Willy Wonka aspect of the Zotta. Really playful, putting flavors together and ideas. You're like, hang on a moment, you sure about that? So I think it's really fun. It's a really fun chocolate bar, I think. It's a good way to put it.
Everybody sort of gets, you know, I think the brilliant thing about, you know, Zotta is that he has at that one end sort of these amazing chocolates, which are sort of just like the one we had from Lara earlier on, you know, these amazingly sort of creative, single estate, beautiful expressions of the bean which go through lovely waves. And on the other hand, you know, these beans are sourced from Pangoa in Peru, and they're super ethical. But yet this is, you know, sort of what we all would love to have as a proper salted caramel. Now, I think as we get all the descriptions here, Rachel, now that everybody's on, I think we should start doing our birthday greetings.
Oh, yes. Okay. All right. So I've made little notes. Yes, from this is how I feel like I'm on a radio station there. So Grandad Scratchy, and myself, wanted to say congrats to David and Tabitha on their baby Solitaire, and happy birthday to David. I hope you're getting a little break from the baby with eating some chocolate. It's a bit of respite. I know what it's like at the beginning. It's a bit of a roller coaster ride. Right. You're welcome, David. And then I have another happy birthday to Nick and Katie Garland. Happy birthday from Claire and myself. I hope you're having a lovely day. Right, should I save some for later, or should I do them all now?
I think we should save a couple just to keep them interested. And by the way, if anybody else has got any, they can just sort of send them to, we've got at least another 3 or 4 to go.
Yes.
So, and if you've got any more, you can send them in, and we won't tell people that you forgot to send them in via email. Okay. So
Annie just had a question.
Yeah, I was about to ask.
Annie's husband's Swiss, and they spend a lot of time in Switzerland. Okay, would love to know if Rachel has spent time there. Yes, I actually have relatives in St. Gallen, which is the German-speaking part of Switzerland. And usually when I go see my family in Austria, you fly to Zurich, and then you take the train to Vorarlberg, and it goes past the Züricher See, the Zurich Lake, which is beautiful in the mountains. So I've been there a lot. And then I also went to the Italian part a couple of summers ago. I've forgotten, I'm so bad with names, but I've been to Switzerland a lot. University of St. Gallen, there you go, small world. So St. Gallen, I've spent a lot of time, and just on the way from Zurich to Vorarlberg. But I love Switzerland, you know, even though the dialect is quite hard. I don't know, my relatives in Austria, they speak a very strong German, Austrian dialect, that even the Viennese, when the have to have subtitles on TV. So yes, Oh, yes, exactly. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Actually, on that subject, we don't have a chocolate from that part of Switzerland, but we do have one from the Austrian bit of Italy, which is about to come on called Carina. And if you want an amazing Swiss chocolate maker, this is the one. This is Taucheli. And this is the lyric word for a coot, which is why they call it Taucheli. We've got one more birthday up there, which is Annie. I will spell it for you in just 2 secs. I'll put it into the chat. What I'm actually going to do I'm now going to basically take Rachel to Paris, and we're going to start with the French chocolate, which I know isn't quite from Paris. We don't have Influencer, we don't have Plaque on it at the moment, but we've got the great hero of the craft chocolate revolution, Stéphane Bonnat, and Alvin Boiron. And so to me, I mean, I'm so amazed at what you managed to do. I'm actually going to blow up one of these pictures in a minute. Tell us what you did in Paris, because this is the start. Yeah. And also, just the markets in Paris and all the other stuff that you got into.
Yeah, before I do that, before this message disappears, Louise wants to wish happy 70th birthday to Dolph. Happy birthday. Right, so Paris mon amour, as they say. Yes, so Paris for me was like my midlife crisis when I was 20, basically. Kind of, no, not really. I was like working in fashion, PR, marketing in London, and I kind of had enough what I was doing and decided to move to Paris and learn how to bake. So I enrolled in a patisserie course at Le Cordon Bleu. And 1 year turned into 2, 3, 4. I ended up living in Paris for 8 years. And like midway through my time in Paris, I'd already written 2 cookbooks. I was doing like various like food gigs, catering, private consulting, like all these kind of food related jobs. And I really wanted to write a book about my experience of cooking in Paris and what it's like to be a foreigner in Paris. And from somebody who hasn't got huge resources and has a small kitchen. So that was the idea of the Little Paris Kitchen. Basically, it was like, this is my life in Paris. I go to the market and I have a very small kitchen. That's where I live, but I still was able to cook, delicious food. And you don't need to have like a really huge apartment. See, oh my goodness, that flat.
Just explain to me how you turn this into a restaurant.
Okay. So the reason being behind the restaurant was because this was like, when was this? So I started doing pop-up restaurants back in 2007, 2008, something like that. I can't remember. So I was doing pop-up restaurants. Like I did pop-ups in Melbourne, Sydney, Buenos Aires, Berlin, London, Paris. So I did pop-up restaurants on a bigger scale in like bigger venues around the world. But when I was, the Little Paris Kitchen was my 3rd cookbook, I realized like, okay, I'm going to have to test a lot of recipes. I don't want to waste the food. And also I want to have like a little bit of money to cover the ingredients. So I thought, okay, I only have 21 square meters. Like my flat was only 21 square meters. I don't have the resources to open a restaurant. I can fit in a table for 3. It's a table for 3 because I always joined the guests for a meal. I said like I was more the hostess. I was like, I'm not going to hide in the bathroom while you eat. I'm joining you. This is about experiencing what it's like to live in Paris. It's about having that interaction. This is a communal experience. This wasn't about just eating food and then going, because they were coming into my home and I wanted to make it a personal experience. So that's why I set up the table, and where the table is, you can see behind it is my futon. So at nighttime, I would fold that out and that's where I'd sleep. And then you can see that brown cabinet in the background there. That was my desk. You could unfold it. And then that black cabinet on the right with La Petite Cuisine à Paris was where the fridge was at the bottom. And then I had my toaster and my KitchenAid in there and a few ingredients. And then when you see all the flowers, that was a kitchen island thingy. So basically I lived in the kitchen. was like, and then just around the corner is like the tiny like hob and like the kitchen sink. So I literally turned the whole kind of 21 square meters into a kitchen, apart from the bathroom did not have any kitchen utensils. And so I just made the most of what I had. And so people would sign up to my newsletter, and every month I would send out people who were on my newsletter, say, this month I'm doing lunch on this day, and if you want to come, send me an email, first come, first serve. And I had people from around the world, like everywhere from the US. Actually, American diners were always the funniest, because they always thought it was going to be something really romantic, and I always had to like, yeah, it's not going to be romantic because I'm sitting at the table in between you guys. So I had people from around the world. Yeah, it was crazy. And then they would just donate like a small fee to cover the ingredients. It was 3 courses plus a bottle of wine, and you could have second helpings if you wanted. And I said the recommended donation was 15 euros per person. But sometimes
if you're ever going to do this again, let us know.
I don't think my husband would be so open to me opening a restaurant.
Now, there's a question though, which actually I think is relevant to this in a sec, because there's a question from Heather about your favorite chocolate shop in the world. So I don't think we're going to necessarily pin you down to that one, but I remember when we talked about this, you actually talked a bit about getting into chocolate in part because in Paris, near where your apartment was near the Bastille, is that right?
No, my first apartment in Paris, when I used to work as a nanny or au pair, was just like next to the Bastille, and it was down this little cobbled street. It was really romantic, beautiful place, and it was 15 square meters. That was even smaller than the place you just saw on the TV show and in those photos. So I lived in 15 square meters. So compact living is my thing. And like down the cobbled street, a couple of streets down, was this place called La Petite Fabrique au Chocolat. So a little chocolate factory. And it was run by an old guy and his grumpy wife. I don't know why. She was always like, whenever I went in to buy a bar, and I had to save up to buy a bar because it wasn't that cheap, and I was on an au pair wage, which was only 80 euros a week. So I had to save up to buy a chocolate bar. She would never give me a sample of anything. Whereas when the guy who was the chocolatier, who made the chocolate, if he was surfing, he would always give me a little sample or something to try. But they did this amazing, very chunky, like praline-filled chocolate bar. Oh my goodness, it was like, and it was wrapped in this like gold foil. It was like so Willy Wonka-esque. And, at Easter time, they would fill the window with all these beautiful... so the name of the chocolate shop is La Petite Fabrique au Chocolat. And I don't know if it's still open, actually. I haven't been back to Paris for a long time. So, I can write it in Fabrique au Chocolat. And it's
but I do think it's interesting, because one of the things which is fascinating about France is, we always sort of joke about the food and everything, but we talked a bit about the markets. But I think even their chocolate shops, there's much more hands-on, and they're much more proud of it. I mean, one of the reasons why Bonnat, just is still doing so brilliantly, and someone actually sort of put this in here, is cooking chocolate. Stefan actually does make some great cooking chocolate.
Yeah.
He also makes a lot of chocolate for other people to make their chocolate bonbons with throughout all of France.
Ah, interesting.
Different sort of couverture. And I think that what makes a great, I think one thing which chocolate doesn't have in the UK as much as it has, say, in France, or Japan, is what coffee has, which is when you go to a coffee store, the baristas are passionate about what they do. Just like, going to a meal with you're going to learn all about the different ingredients, how you've cooked them and everything else like that. And I think that's probably what you get more out of the French chocolate stores. I mean, certainly if you go to somewhere like Chapon or, one of those great stores, they will explain to you how they've made the chocolate, which is very, very hard to do in the UK.
Yeah.
Because there isn't really anybody like that. I mean, Bare Bones will be doing that. Dormouse do it a bit in Manchester. Duffy's obviously does it a bit. Pump Street definitely do it, and we'll talk about Pump Street next, actually, in a minute. So this is you coming back to the UK in a minute.
Yeah.
So yeah, but these are fantastic descriptions. But I mean,
I want to just say, like, going back to Bon Art, when I was living in Paris, I do remember seeing this beautiful, like, the packaging. I'm a sucker for packaging. I went to art college. I spent 4 years studying like graphic design. So I sometimes buy things just for the packaging. I've been like, I remember going to Tallinn and going to the supermarket and picking up this box. I was like, oh, I love the graphic design. And I went home, was staying at a friend's, and he said, you just bought a box of salt, you know? So yeah, so I mean, I love like typography and the way people think about the design. And I think actually what's interesting about all these craft chocolate bars is there's a lot of thought put into every aspect of the chocolate experience.
Yeah, and they're being environmentally friendly. But I think the other thing I'd just like to pick up just before we move off France, because you know, you're a great foodie. Why is it that we've got so many great foodies in France? What is it about the French?
I think so I remember my first day in Paris. When I moved to Paris, I was picked up like by the host family. I was looking after 2 girls, and it was a Saturday, and it was the second day I was in Paris. And they said, look, come to the market with us. We'll show you around. And the 8-year-old girl, she took me around, not the mother. She said, this is where you buy the best, blah, blah, blah. This is where you buy the cheese. This is da, da, da. You don't want to buy something from him. He's not very good. And she was 8. She knew about food in a manner that I think is just ingrained in their culture. You know, I was told like how to cut a piece of cheese, how, you know, you should eat certain things. And it's just ingrained in that culture. Whereas I think in, excuse me, in the UK, it's something... Obviously, people have a better understanding now, but when I was growing up, I remember my mum had to go to the pharmacy to pick up olive oil, you know. This is a cultural kind of shift, a food shift, which has only happened in like, well, in the last 20 years, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's a great, it's starting to happen though. We've got farmers markets. And in fact,
yes.
that segues us
back.
But
actually,
discovered.
On farmers market, what I would say the biggest difference between a farmers market and the markets in France is even on an au pair wage, on a student wage where I didn't have a big budget, I could still shop at the market. And shopping at the market was not exclusively something for people who are affluent or have a big budget. I mean, I support farmers markets, but I do think the accessibility, if you're on a low wage, it's a bit more difficult. Whereas in France, it was definitely a lot more accessible to people from all different backgrounds.
And you have the end of the day, people are willing just to sort of, you know, sell you what they've got and not take it to the next French farmers market, you know.
Yeah.
Which I think is in the UK. I mean, the good thing in the UK is you're not giving it to supermarkets. The bad thing is you're still paying supermarket or above prices, which is pretty tricky. But anyway, you come back to the UK. We're now going to try the Great Pump Street sourdough.
Oh my goodness.
Sea salt bar, which we've deliberately restricted to give everybody a small one, just because otherwise we know that you're all going to scoff at us. And as a quick heads up, it does contain.
So good.
But I found a picture of you on the bike. Because you bike to this one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, that was at a secret cinema event where they did a Wes Anderson movie. And the secret cinema is like the whole, like, you have to dress up, everybody's in costumes and it's all themed. It's really, really good fun. So I'm originally from the UK, born in Croydon, grew up in Bromley, although I spent some time in Germany, studied in London, lived in London for a long time. I still think London is my home, even though I've been in Stockholm for the last 4 years. So I have, you know, London is like part of me. So, and I feel British, even though I have a Swedish passport now. So technically I could be Swedish. So yeah, so the UK, really passionate about the UK, and also passionate about talking how exciting the UK food scene is. And definitely what was interesting filming the chocolate series was initially, I pitched this show pre-pandemic, and this show was going to be filmed with the intention of going to many different places around Europe, but the pandemic kind of changed that. And so we had to really focus more on the UK. And that actually was really, it opened my eyes, because I didn't realize how strong the chocolate craft scene is in the UK. It is just like flourishing at the moment. So Pump Street was a chocolate bar I discovered many years ago when I was living in London. They had a pop-up on Redchurch Street in East London. And I bought a bar of their sourdough, and I bought and some Eccles cakes because their bakery is also very, very good. And the following day I had to go back to buy some more because it was so good. It's not just the taste, it's the texture. And I love the idea they're kind of incorporating their kind of like their baking, their like philosophy. It's like bringing everything together so well.
Yeah, I always think this is a perfect bar in many ways for you, because it is all about, great craftsmanship. I mean, Chris originally was a software engineer, then made video games, then got into bread. And Joanna, of course, is a designer, married to a designer too. So they sort of bring out, on the one hand, your craft of that, and on the other hand, all of your great design. But so how did you find coming back to the UK from Paris? What were the big sort of...
Well, the reason I came back was because I was offered to do a 20 episode TV series for BBC Lifestyle. So it was Rachel Khoo's Kitchen Notebook, and we filmed it in a house on Columbia Road. So it made sense to come back. All my work was coming back from the coming from the UK. So and I think, excuse me, that I had to come back to the UK to take my career to another level. So for me, the Little Paris Kitchen, it wouldn't have worked in France. I actually pitched the same concept to a French publisher, but they declined to take it. So that's, I went to the UK and I sold that idea, and that's where I ended up, with a corporate deal.
You did.
Yeah, and the TV. I just want to say hi to Neil, because Neil is the loveliest cabbie I know in London. He picks me up when I'm in the UK, in London. And he is very right. The location of Pump Street Bakery is beautiful. It's in Alford, a beautiful seaside town.
And actually, the one other thing that you should all know about is that now that we're allowed to travel a bit in the UK, I believe that at some point Pump Street will actually be doing factory tours again, because I think when Rachel, you went down there, I can't remember, did you actually go to the factory in the...
Yes.
You went to the new factory in the old aerodrome.
We were really fortunate. We were able to go to the factory, and it was so interesting to see. It's not a huge, like massive kind of big production. It is still quite small and intimate.
And on the subject of intimate, do you think we should do a couple more birthdays?
Oh yes, okay. So
I like these. We've never done this before. We've always put them up at the beginning, and then everybody gets forgotten. But now we've got a bit more excitement.
Yeah, I've done my little post-its to remind me. I'm like,
and I've got the list here, which we're checking off too. So I hope we don't forget anybody.
So I want to wish happy birthday to Jim Gilroy from Pauline. Happy birthday. Hope you're having a lovely day. And then another happy birthday, happy 30th to Catherine from your husband, Florent. Maybe I'm not saying that. I've put a French accent on that. Don't know. Florent is the English pronunciation. And then I have the last one. Happy 30th wedding anniversary. Wow, 30 years. Nigel and Natalie from Newbury. And funny enough, I lived in Newbury for a few years. I went to St. Bart's secondary school. I did my sixth form, my A-levels there.
And the lovely thing about that wedding anniversary is that both husband and wife wrote in separately to wish one another a happier birthday, which just shows how good they are. Mark has asked a question which we could pick up now or later. So Mark works for the UN about basically how different is people's consumption of chocolate, because you actually, you've done so much TV in Japan, all over Europe, etc. So it's something, it'd be interesting to sort of get your perspective on how do people consume chocolate differently in different places. What do you think? You can think about it while we move on to talking about Japan in Sweden, if you want. We can give you a bit of a breather on that.
Well, I can see there are a few people from Newbury, and somebody's parents lived opposite my parents. Okay, my dad borrowed the tools. That sounds like my dad.
And did he take them back? That's the key thing, or else they're going to have to go.
Oh my goodness! Well, they live in Austria. I think my dad is very responsible. He would definitely take them back. He would, So yes. Sorry, I've lost track. Am I question?
No, we are about to do you moving to Sweden.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm going to have to confess. I got this chocolate bar. It was so good that I finished it before we did the tasting. So I kept the packaging because I wanted to remind myself how good it was. But these are, this is a Swedish chocolate maker.
Japanese.
Yes, so, exactly.
Is half Japanese, and Frederick his only slight challenge is he's had a particular propensity towards natural wine. He's a great bloke. He's fantastic. And they're having their second child, so we can have another happy birthday. They're about their second child. So they're absolutely fantastic people. They're absolutely wonderful. And come on, I mean, like, your Instagram feed is sort of like, you know, the Swedish advertising authorities sort of dream to get everybody there.
I work with Visit Sweden, you know, but the funny thing is, like, when my Swedish cookbook came out, I ended up doing events at the Swedish Embassy in Tokyo, in Vienna, to promote Swedish food. And I'm like, I'm a Brit promoting Swedish food. How did this ever happen? And I mean, the same thing happened with French food. You know? So I end up promoting everybody else's food, but the British food. I guess Swedish lifestyle kind of tends to be outside. You know, people really embrace the outside here. And they say there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes. Because if you don't wear good clothes here, then you'll never go out. So, I do embrace the outside more, which is great because, you know, you barbecue in any weather. If it's snowing, you definitely do that. That might look a bit romantic. I don't normally barbecue with a skirt on, but I'm more like trousers. But it's definitely, you embrace the outside. And fishing, I was so proud. I caught a 2-kilo trout. Was it 2 kilos? It was a big trout.
That is a big fish.
Yes. So
And we're still trying to get you to go swimming.
Yes. Well, we do a lot of swimming. Like, it's so funny how it's been like branded as wild swimming. Here they just call it swimming. It's like you're just swimming. It's no big deal. You swim outside in the lake, or like here in Stockholm where I live, it's less than 5 minutes walk to the water, and you can swim like in the archipelago because the water's clear.
Well, we've got the ponds.
Yes. Yeah, well,
the archipelago, I will say, but we've got Svenska to talk about what we're all enjoying.
And I think what I really like about this chocolate bar is it makes it's just so accessible. You know, it's dark milk, and I have a lot of friends who like, oh, I don't like dark chocolate. You know, they're like, and so this one, I think it just makes, like, if you want to get somebody into like, oh, well, why don't you try this one? It's like, it's not as, you know, like you're going into your 80%, 78%. This is like at 55, and it's, it's just such an easy one to kind of get into. And there's an interesting, you kind of mentioned when we were filming how like the dark milk is like really something which is gaining a lot of attention, so much so that commercial brands are kind of picking up on it.
But to us, a dark milk has to be above 50% cocoa solids. And actually, the interesting thing is, so just 2 quick comments. I'd love everybody to go back to Cameron and Lara's bar, which is the first bar, the bare bones, because it's actually made with the same beans as this bar. They're both from Oca Caribe, which is this fantastic cooperative in the Dominican Republic. And interestingly, you may not believe this, but there's actually less added sugar in the dark milk than there is in the Scottish bar, because the milk is caramelized to give it the sweetness. And so, although it's very, very Moorish because you've got all the sort of bliss point stuff going on. But anyway, but we miss you in Sweden. I mean, we want you back. And we want more TV programs.
You know what? That's really interesting. And that's where, like, a craft chocolate maker, like caramelizing the milk, you know, there's an extra attention, you know, a little bit of detail, which changes the flavor profile. So it's, I had no idea. I just enjoyed it, basically.
The problem with the only challenge I find with dark milks is they are very, very Moorish.
Yes.
I mean, you know, even though you can sort of, you know, do your flavor wave and you can savor them and everything. So they're not like a sort of, you know, cabbage, which you've got a wolf.
Yeah.
They are very, very Moorish. It's sort of goes to it. Now, I'm very conscious of the fact that you are an hour ahead of us and you've got young ones and everything else. So what we'd love everybody to do is to retaste the bars and then just have a quick vote for them.
Oh, yes. I haven't really kept up with my, what do you call it?
We're not going to publicize this. Actually, we are. Okay. So I'm telling a bit of myth truth there.
All right. Okay. I'm like, I have to pick a favorite. Can you not? Oh, you may choose up to 3 options.
Okay. Yeah, no, we've got you. I think actually I may have limited it to 2. I think I may have slightly goofed it. Yeah. So I think you may only have a couple of choices. So yes, but as we keep going, it's
really interesting seeing what's most popular. I'm just going to have a little bit more Foster.
Yeah, no, Foster is. It's such a genius bar, and they're all. Bare Bones is just the most fantastic. There is a question for you from Rebecca here, which is your favorite chocolate ever. Your fellow TV presenter.
Oh my goodness.
That's a bit unfair. You could. I mean, I don't know.
Actually, when I first because I happened upon I discovered you through some random Google rabbit hole chocolate library, and that's how I kind of found you and reached out to you. But now I've kind of built up a chocolate library at home, and I kind of select the chocolate and depending on how I'm feeling that day.
Yeah.
So I really, I might not be up for a Foster one night. It might be more of a dark milk kind of situation, or it might be more of a Bare Bones. So it really depends how I feel. But I think the ones I picked out tonight, or you have in your box, are my really, if I were to pick out some my favorites to gift to someone, these would be my. We're
going to get you to do gift boxes going forward, and we will eventually figure out how to get chocolate to you. At the moment, we are having nightmares with Brexit.
I know. I've got one in customs at the moment. I've just paid the import duties on that, so hopefully I'll get it soon.
It's ridiculous. It's going to get worse from July. That's the real problem. I mean, we're absolutely about it. Well, from July it goes down from €20 to €1. So there is a question about how do we store chocolate at home. So here you go. Yes, there's that packet, and I have actually a Tupperware box which I have in a dark, cool cupboard. It's the Tupperware box. It's basically out of light. It's not in the fridge. That's the one.
No, it's not in the fridge. I don't.
When you subscribe, we actually give you a pouch to store your chocolate in, where you can sort of write the chocolates that you put in it. And I think the other thing is it's always worth having a couple of them. We have a quiz. So we
yes.
And then we can open it up to a few more questions. There are a few questions which we haven't answered.
Yeah.
So, and again, just to sort of explain how this quiz works, if you get the answer right, the faster you get it right, the better you do. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And I hope that we'll have covered at least the answers to some of these questions at some point in various ones.
All right.
Right. And I hope I've got some of the ones right too. Right. We ready?
Okay. Oh no, I've lost my code. I've got to enter the code.
It's 58 66 1402.
Okay.
So who has the highest chocolate consumption per capita? Well done, everybody says Germany. The Germans eat a lot of chocolate. It's not going to catch them up. And even though Sweden's got lots of Nobel Prizes, we're actually slightly ahead of them. Right, so there you go. Now, we did run through this at the beginning, and I did actually tell everybody that I listed a whole bunch of things which were tastes. One of these is something you get when you have something which is full of tannins, and it's not a taste. Yes, you can tell that people have been to one of our tastings before because they've all learned what astringency means. Put in their mouths. So they've all done very well. I think I have to change this going forward. So this is another one that, again, this is going to sort of sort the people out. So remember, chocolate grows 0 to 20 degrees of the equator. Wine grows 28 to 52 degrees of the equator. The word here important is commercially. France, I will give you a true, does not have any rainforest, and you generally need rainforest. The Argentina was a good guess, but it's not as good as Australia.
I thought so.
Argentina is too far south. Yeah. It doesn't have any chocolate. We actually don't even have any Argentinian chocolate makers. Brilliant for lots of wines, but we don't have any good Argentinian chocolate makers yet. Right. Now, this is fun. What did we first start to cook and prepare with chocolate? Was it ice cream, chocolate cakes, brownies, or the chocolate mousse? So it's actually ice cream. Ice cream is the first thing we have a record of. Chocolate cakes are a little bit later, big in Germany. The German chocolate cake is very big in Germany. Chocolate mousse is actually a late 19th century invention by none other than Toulouse-Lautrec, who called it chocolate mayonnaise. And brownies at 1895 in a hotel up in Maine. So you can tell I have too much time on my hands. And then finally, so Rachel, you are multilingual and you've done TVs in all of these places. And I hope I've got one of these right, that you don't speak it. We can test in a minute anyhow. Oh, they all got it. It's a shame. I think you could learn it. I think we could.
Konnichiwa. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Domo. Right, let's have a quick drum roll and see who we basically send lots of stuff to. Wow, what a group of very, very smart people. Tomo, I think it must be Tomo-san. You were the fastest, so basically send us in everything. Fantastic. Just look, quick comments. Watch Rachel's latest TV show. Rachel and I will send out an email afterwards, and I'm just going to basically take the Rachel Khoo chocolate book, and we'll basically send all that around to everybody else. But basically, do cook. There's a question from Mark about when you cook with chocolate, do you use the based? What do you cook with? Do you use good chocolate to cook with? And then yes. We'd love to basically get any comments on what we could do better, what you'd like to see next time, if we can ever persuade Rachel to come back. And then we can basically use Menti as well to ask questions, as well as answering the questions on the Q&A. So we've got a bunch of questions. So the first one is, Rachel, do you speak Schweizerdeutsch?
Schweizerdeutsch? Nein, ich kann kein Schweizerdeutsch sprechen, aber ich kann ein bisschen verstehen. Also verstehen geht's ganz gut.
So is that yes or no?
No, I can't really, because I understand it, and it actually Schweizerdeutsch is even stronger than the dialect my relatives in Austria speak. They speak Vorarlbergerisch, so I understand it, but boy, I can't speak it. It is another language in its own.
Okay, and then there's a question about how did you get your message out for bookings at your Petit Cuisine à Paris?
Well, like I mentioned, I had this was pre-social media, so I had a newsletter people would just sign up to, and also I had a Facebook page, and I would put the dates on there, but it was the newsletter which people signed up to. And actually, I am relaunching my newsletter and my website at the end of this month, so keep an eye out for that.
Well, we'll send out the details once you've got it to everybody too. Now, there's another question, which is, when baking, why should we use unsalted butter with added salt rather than salted butter?
So, like I always say, do whatever you want. But the main reason is because you can control the amount of salt. So sometimes you're making a dish or where the ingredients you're already adding have salt in them. If you're making a cheesecake, then sometimes you don't want to be adding, you want to control the amount of salt. And also it's personal preference. Some people, I don't need as much salt as some other people. So I tend to kind of under season. And that's when I was doing pop-up restaurants, I got criticized on that a lot. But I had no qualms with putting salt on the table and letting everybody season their own food. So so I think it's just about control, basically. And also different salted butter have different quantities of salt. So depending on the brand, the level might be different. So you never know exactly how much salt you're adding with salted butter. That saying, when I lived in France, there were many times I would bake with salted butter. Okay,
so Rachel, you got to give a shout out to Scotch.
Okay.
because Scotch is basically would like to eat chocolate, but if he does, theobromine does not do well with the chocolate's digestion.
No, Scotch. No chocolate now. Like, no chocolate. We have a 4-month-old Labrador puppy, and I am meticulous about making sure there are no like crumbs of chocolate anywhere. But she literally eats everything at the moment. It's a nightmare.
Okay, so then we've got so then we've got a bunch of different questions, some of which we're going to have a go. I'm going to try and link 2 of them. So there's one which is up on the screen, which is favorite mass-produced chocolate bar, and about how serious does the chocolate take fair trade and ethical sourcing. So I'm going to basically give you my reply, and then I'm going to let Rachel do it very quickly. So in essence, the problem with chocolate is that if you think about coffee, the thing which is addictive in coffee is caffeine. The thing which is addictive in wine is alcohol. They're both great products, and you can actually get people into the flavor and into saving it. The problem with chocolate is mass-produced chocolate is all about sugar, because that's what's addictive in it. Theobromine is not addictive. It's not good for dogs, but it's not addictive. And so what all mass-produced chocolate is all about is basically getting it for as cheap as you can and getting you to eat as much of it as you possibly can. It's not about getting you to savor or to be careful about it. None of it is ethically responsible. If you want to know more about it, write to us afterwards or come to one of our craft chocolate tastings, and we'll explain to you the 3 things you must look for on a label, which is basically, where do the beans come from? We sell over 1,000 bars. We won't sell a bar unless we can tell you exactly where the beans come from, because basically the average farmer in West Africa, which is where 70% of the world's chocolate comes from, gets paid 70p a day. That's like 1/3 of what they need to live on. And it's just a disaster and everything else which happens to it. So we insist on looking at the ingredients. So I don't really go for the favorite mass-produced chocolate bar. Ethical stuff, to us, that's the reason why we do it. It's lovely to find a product which everybody buys, which you can actually, it tastes better. It's much better for them, and it's much better for the farmers on the planet. Right. And then I think, Rachel, I think you can do which chocolates are best for which meats. And can you do fish and chocolate?
Yes, you know what? If you watch this week's episode on my chocolate series, I do a confit cocoa cod, and I use cocoa nibs to confit the cod. So you can, but actually, when you think it's not chocolate, I use white chocolate to make a wasabi dressing. A salad, no, that's for another dish. But you can use it. It's all about the quality. And you might not be using chocolate, you might be using cocoa nibs, you might be using cocoa powder. So it's more like with the chocolate series, I really kind of embraced using cocoa like a spice rather than just an ingredient or like a chocolate bar you consume. So yes, you definitely can. And if you want to know how or what kind of recipes, either watch the TV series or like get a copy of the eco book, because there's like quite a few recipes, savory recipes in there, which work really well for like, everything from vegan to meat to fish.
Yeah, no, so that's absolutely brilliant. How long does chocolate keep its temper? So does everyone know what temper means? Temper is the crystal structure that chocolate has which gives you that snap, which we started at the beginning.
How long is a piece of string?
Yeah, this is, okay, so technically there are 2 angles to temper which you need to know about. It basically depends where you put the chocolate.
Yes.
Because that will change its crystal structure. So if you put it in the sun and then you put it in the fridge, you'll retemper it and it will hit crystal structure 6. And it will then basically not have a melting point at human body temperature. The second thing, which is a little bit technical, a little bit strange, is that cocoa butter, when you temper it, technically becomes a liquid. And over the course of the next 18 months, it will actually become much more of a solid. So that's the reason why the mouthfeel can slightly go apart. And it's the reason why some vintage chocolates are actually retempered by the makers when they reissue them a couple of years later, like people like Fresco. Right, so I've got to ask you this question.
Yes.
What was your fave 3 courses you made in your little Paris kitchen? And then my question is, when can we get them?
So my favorite way to cook in Paris was the way when I was doing my lunches. I did them on a Wednesday and a Friday because those were the days for my local market. And I'd go to my local market in the morning and I'd see what was in season, what was looking the best, whether it was the fish, whether it was, certain selection of, there was always fruit and veg. So it kind of really varied. But what I loved to do was to start with a really vibrant seasonal salad with a beautiful cheese. And I mean, I had a cheesemonger. She was like, I'm a cheeseaholic. You like chocolate, but cheese is not like cheese and chocolate. They're like my, 2 biggest pleasures, basically. And yeah, so cheese was always like with a really vibrant salad. And then I would really, what did I like? I just like to keep it simple. So like all the recipes you see in the little Paris kitchen, it was kind of like built on that. So it's seasonal, making the most of the produce. So if I were to cook another Paris kitchen meal, I would literally just go to the market, be inspired what I found at the market in that morning, and just cook something inspired by that. So I don't think I had a favorite. It was always like going with, the figs. Love figs. Like if they're in season, I used to have to buy 3 bags of figs, 1 to eat on the way home, 1 for the meal, and 1 to have later on, because like it's just so Moorish. So yeah, figs and dark chocolate. Yes.
And it's great dipping at the end. So heat up a bit of chocolate, have some great figs, just dip them, same with it.
You can keep it really simple. Like I think if you have access to in-season great produce, you really don't have to do much work. And that's what I always say. If you have the means and you have that accessible to you, just buy the best you can afford, which is in season, and you have to do less work. You know, I think of a perfectly ripe tomato. You literally slice it up, bit of sea salt, drizzle of olive oil, and tear up some herbs, and that's it. You've got a nice tomato salad. You don't need more. Maybe a crusty baguette. That's always good.
So I'm going to rapidly do a couple of quick questions. Recommend port as a match for chocolates? Yes, with I mean, basically you want an LBV or a vintage port. Difficult to do tawny, difficult to do white, but anything which has got a bit of bite to it, great with 100% or a high percentage one. Ideal temperature to eat chocolate at, not when it's too cold. You need to have some heat, because otherwise it won't melt. And remember, the 2 things which release flavor in chocolate is 1, the heat from your mouth, and if it's cold outside, it'll stay longer. And then secondly, it's the enzymes in your saliva breaking it down. Recommendations on Australian craft chocolate makers? Brilliant question. Netisto, who originally, of course, learned his craft in Sweden. Trevor, absolutely amazing chocolate maker. Bizarrely, New Zealand has a lot of great chocolate makers too. Hogarth, bread and butter. Solomon's Gold, absolutely fantastic. There was a fantastic woman chocolate maker as well called Yun Kim, who ran something, who I think she stopped. We've got to try and get some more of her chocolate in if she hasn't. She stopped for a bit. What's your favorite chocolate for cooking, Rachel? You're on the spot. And you don't have to say that the ones that
so I live in Sweden, and I just buy the local supermarket have a fair trade dark chocolate, which is at 70%, and it's a good accessible price point, and it's a good, like 70% is just, I think it's just the right point for me in terms of like getting that chocolate fix. And you know, like it's fair trade, so you are paying a fairer wage to the farmers. So that's what I get here in Sweden. But I know in the UK there are a lot of fair trade chocolate bars. Sorry?
Pump Street do.
Pump Street.
We should have another chat about fair trade and chocolate. It's obviously better to have fair trade chocolate than not, but
I think for me it's like with my TV shows, and certainly the network were really adamant about it, is keeping it accessible, because I do understand the majority of people like this is like these kind of chocolate bars, these are treats, it's a luxury. It's not, you know, something like getting a chocolate bar at the like corner shop. So it's kind of like with the series, I wanted to educate people, like this is the cost of chocolate, and this is why, you know, you might not be paying a lot of money, but somebody else is paying the price. The farmers are paying the price because they're not getting accessible wage. So I think, you know, where there are a lot of questions with fair trade and how they do, I think it's better than buying the commercial.
No, absolutely no doubt.
Yeah. So I think
great guys, and they alert people to attention. So there's a great question here about food miles. So yes. I'm taking it from food miles that somebody's environmentally sensitive. So I'm going to give you a slightly shocking statistic about chocolate. Forget almonds. Chocolate is the most water-hungry product you will ever get hold of. To make a bar of chocolate, take the Fossa. That requires anywhere between 1.5 to 2,000 litres of water. Putting that in context, that's a month's worth of baths. If you unwrap that, the really big difference between craft chocolate and mass-produced chocolate is that mass-produced chocolate often generally will involve deforestation because it's cloned cacao, which they're planting very fast. So the great thing about craft chocolate is that actually you need the rainforest canopy, and it needs to be actually quite messy underneath for the cocoa trees to cross-pollinate and actually get the cocoa pods coming out of them. So if you're into the food miles and if you're into the whole environmental stuff, actually really focus on the fact that craft chocolate is one of the best products you can buy to actually preserve the rainforest and actually keep the environment and keep the ecology going. So I mean, and you know, write to me and we'll answer all these questions if you write in with it. We can talk more about that one a bit there. Sarah wants a shout out. She's a huge fan. It's not her birthday, which is very honest, because I would have been tempted just to sort of say it's
Sarah,
my birthday.
you can have a shout out. And like, I always love to hear people who like enjoy watching my shows or make a recipe, especially, you know, if you ever do that, or even if you're watching the show and you want to tag me on social media, I'm always happy to see somebody's watching the show. It's like, yes, another person watching it. I'll get a recommission, fingers crossed.
Couple of quick questions on chocolate better before the best before date. Just quickly, best before date used by dates in the UK. Used by means it's got something in it which is going to go off, which is the weird reason why most mass-produced dark chocolate bars will actually have a used by date, because they'll have some preservative or they'll have, you know, some sort of stabilizer or even whey powder in it, which will go off. In that case, you should pay attention to it. Best before dates, by law, everything in the UK, with the exception of wine and a couple of other products, actually has to have a date which you say it's best before. Chocolate, really don't worry about it. Unless, let me leave on to the white bloom. White bloom is basically a sign that the chocolate has retempered. And as it's remolded, it'll basically sweat it out some cocoa butter and some sugar. Quick aside, if it's a good bar of chocolate, that white stuff is cocoa butter, the unguent that we all use in lotions and potions, so you can take it off and rub it on yourself. But if it's a cheap bar of chocolate like Marabou, I'm really sorry, that's going to be vegetable fat.
Oh my goodness, Marabou.
It's going to be vegetable fat and palm oil, and it's like rubbing margarine on yourself. Did that answer those two questions? Yeah, so what do I think of Marabou? Yeah, it's like, yeah. So Rabo, 1745, Hotel Chocolat. So the good news is that's Hotel Chocolat doing bean to bar craft chocolate. So we should encourage them to do that. The less good news is that that's not the only thing that Hotel Chocolat does. Hotel Chocolat is mainly made, unfortunately, by Callebaut. We can talk more about that one another point. What technical recipe do you know so well that you don't need to look at the measurements recipe at all? Boiled eggs do not count.
Bechamel sauce. And actually, I met Marco Pierre White in Sydney once at a restaurant. And the first question he asked after our mutual connection introduced me and saying, yeah, she's a chef, said, how do you make a bechamel sauce? And I'm like, do I need to tell you that? Anyway, there you go. Marco Pierre White wanted to know how to make a bechamel sauce. But that I know how to make. Well, I don't even measure that. I just fling in the butter, the flour, the milk, and yeah, make it happen.
It's brilliant. How many bars do you like to have ongoing at any one time, Rachel? I know I have my answer to this.
Okay, I have way too many. Because I like to sit after dinner. If the kids I've got 2-year-old and 4-year-old, and if the kids haven't gone crazy and like they're just like chilling out, then I like to sit down and I like to go through my little like selection of chocolates, like, oh, what do I fancy tasting tonight? You know, kind of thing. And that's kind of the fun of the enjoying chocolate. I like that. So I have quite a few going.
I reckon 5 or 6 is getting you started. I mean, it's like a keys board. There should be a lot. We actually do chocolate boards, which we can get you then too. What have we not answered? Rachel, I'm very, very conscious of the fact that this is way over the time, and it's definitely... You've got
Don't worry. I am just so grateful that people turned up. That's always good.
I'm grateful that you agreed to do this with us too. So we've got a question about who is your favourite chocolatier?
You know, actually, during the TV series, I met William Curley. Is that right? And did I say his name right? A lovely Scottish chocolatier. And he just has such, you know, delicate approach to making chocolates. Like the flavors were just so fine-tuned. Like really well balanced. I mean, this is like couture chocolate, I would say.
Yeah, he used to use Amadei, and then I think he moved to using Valrhona. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I mean, like from the series, I think I like William Curley, like in terms of like I'm not talking about craft chocolate, I'm like talking like chocolate truffles.
Well, he uses craft chocolate. Like we are now seeing more and more chocolate makers actually using craft chocolate. There's a lovely lady in Scotland called Charlotte Flower, who does phenomenal craft chocolate bonbons, for what we sort of call them.
Yeah.
These guys, when we can all get back to traveling, this is Casa Cacao, which is the sort of the Rocker brothers.
Yeah.
And they've just basically taken Damien Alsop, who's the other person with William Curley back in the early 2000s, who really got making craft chocolate, and they make amazing chocolate too. And obviously there are a few chocolate makers who also make great filled chocolates. In the States, you've got French Broad, Yale, who's absolutely amazing, and Fruition, Bob Dylan's doctor's son-in-law. Try and get your head around that one. Brian Graham and Dahlia make amazing chocolates too as well then. So I think we're there. I think we could well be there. So I think we've managed to exhaust it. There was one question from Tomo-san, which I'm not sure that I can answer, despite because it's a long time since I've been to Singapore. She has a friend who is, she basically is Singapore accessible with a wheelchair. A friend of ours, she had a friend who basically said it might not be that easy for a vacation. I'm not sure. I definitely say that Thailand and Japan are not good bets.
I would have thought so, but I mean, I would have to check with a friend, but I would have thought Singapore would, because they're very much about, I don't know. I would have to, this is where if I think about the markets and stuff like that.
The hotels definitely would be. I'll tell you what, Sam, we will write to Yelena and the crew at Fossa, and we'll ask them without saying anything like that.
Look, so Joe just said, Joe on the chat says, I'm a wheelchair user and Singapore is the best holiday I've been on. Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate that. That's good to know. That's great to know. Well, look, there you go. I heard from Joe. And I saw there's one last question. Gareth, you like my green cupboards in my kitchen. The kitchen company, it was hand painted with a Swedish linseed oil paint. So that's why it looks a bit unpolished and not perfect. So I didn't paint them, but maybe glad I didn't paint them. They wouldn't look very good. Yes, sorry, that was a non-chocolate related. Well, actually it was chocolate related because that's the kitchen we filmed the chocolate series in.
There you go. Who was the lady in West London who used her Asian heritage to flavour chocolates? I'm not sure I know the answer to that one.
Oh, I don't know.
Cartography? Is it cartography? It might be cartography. Yeah. Neil, write to us afterwards and we'll try and find out to it. Valrhona, it's both quality and hype. They produce a bunch of mass-produced cheap chocolate. They do produce some high-end good chocolate. They used to use a lot of Bertel Arkeson's Madagascar. That's actually what Ganduja, that's what they actually sort of kicked off with. But now it's a bit of a smorgasbord. But I think we should basically leave on the note that Joe was so generous to Tomo-san with that. I think that was absolutely fantastic. And Rachel, thank you so much for, first of all, the most amazing TV series, which we played a very, very small part in. But secondly, thank you for just being so brilliant about sharing your craft chocolate in conversation, your life and everything else, and come to the UK again soon.
I hope I can come back. I'm just waiting to get my vaccine and the passport to be sorted out, but fingers crossed. But I must say, I've really enjoyed tonight. It's been great fun. And I hope you all tune into the series. Like I said, it's on Monday, 7:00 on the Food Network UK, or you can catch up on Discovery Plus UK, and it's free to watch. You just have to set up an account. And failing that, get the e-cookbook. It's all being donated. All being donated to Women's Aid. Yes, and I just want to thank you very much to everybody who supports me anyway. I really appreciate it. So yeah, well, I hope you all have a lovely, lovely weekend. It's Friday tomorrow, so that really counts the weekend. And thanks again for joining. I'm off to brush my teeth and take off my makeup and get into bed.
Thank you so much. And I hope it gets warmer in Sweden too.
I put out my peas, and like my pea shoots are not looking happy. So I sound so middle class. I put out my pea shoots.
Putting out your peas is a great thing to do, but I think you should now basically, as you sort of said,
all right, take